Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Des1313 and today's 10 list will have you scratching your head at how dumb some people can be. So without further wait, I have for you 10 totally cringeworthy events that were broadcast live. Number 10, setting the bar low for the new year. While the end of the year ball drop in New York City had been taking place for over a century, it wasn't actually broadcast by any television stations until the 1940s. Since then, it has become a yearly spectacle for companies with seemingly endless budgets to broadcast the event live as it happens, down to the very second that the new year rings in. As more years have passed, the ability to broadcast live has become cheaper and cheaper, allowing people who usually couldn't host a New Year's special the ability to do so if they wish. This is where Jamie Kennedy's Carl Jr. End of the Year Bash comes in. Unrehearsed and seemingly unscripted, things fell apart from pretty much the beginning of the festivities. The moment the broadcast went live, all walkie-talkie communications were lost. What followed was purely awkward hilarity as camera broadcast the wrong feed for painfully long spans of time. Interviews with random people from the crowd turned into a drunken and confused rants as they tried to read from teleprompters not meant for them. People's microphones would randomly come on when they weren't supposed to, allowing viewers to listen on private conversations during the broadcast, which led to quite a few profanities slipping through when censored. To put the icing on the cake, they didn't even have a clock to count down the final few seconds of the year and ended up doing their countdown after the year had already ended. In interviews, Jamie Kennedy has claimed that the unscripted and difficult feel of the show was on purpose. As he wished to be part of something that could be considered the antithesis of every other end-of-the-year broadcast. If this was truly his goal, he certainly succeeded, and needs a lot of help after that one. Number 9 is Konami's conference goes so badly they just gave up. Oh, Konami just gets better and better the more I hear about him. Anyway, in the last few years, it has become the cool new thing for big companies to live stream their various conferences online to people across the world, with each year's conference getting bigger and more extravagant than the last. What used to be something that companies did for their stockholders and a few members for the press has become a huge spectacle where companies spend hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes even millions, to entertain. They've gotten so big, in fact, that some conferences are actually broadcast on television stations with celebrity interviews and live performances, which have absolutely nothing to do with the companies themselves. In 2010, during E3, Japanese game development group Konami was about to take center stage with their attempt to impress and excite the masses. For a conference as big as E3, you have to come out swinging with your biggest and best kept secrets if you hope to get any traction online and in the news. While Konami certainly attracted a lot of press for their press conference, it wasn't the good kind. What followed after their show began is still hard to put into words. A group of actual lucha libre wrestlers came on stage at one point and began to slap each other around for what can best be described as an eternity. Why did they do this? Because Konami had booked their very own wrestling event scheduled to take place later that week. After the strange display, another man came on stage and pulled his own head off. Still not strange enough? How about adding an Asian man who told a crowd of onlookers that they were going to be sucked? Okay. These are only a few of the events that took place during the conference. Many more could be discussed, but this is a list, not a novel, about the conference that killed a company. Speaking of killing a company, after the event ended and Konami became the laughing stock of the internet, the company completely pulled out of ever holding any sort of live conferences ever again. As of writing of this article, corporate warfare within Konami has been so bad that a majority of news websites are actually predicting the demise of the company within the next few years. Go Konami for being a dumbass. Number 8, Are You Born Mobile? The CES is a yearly event where the biggest tech companies come together to show off their new technological breakthroughs. Ultra HD TVs that put your 1080p's to shame. eating utensils that measure how much and how fast you eat in real time, and touchscreen tablets that actually change shape and morph to better suit your needs are just some of the amazing strange bits of future tech that you could find each year at the show. What you wouldn't expect to see are giant talking birds or comedy stylings of Maroon 5. But that's exactly what the public got during Qualcomm's CES conference in 2013, when the highlight of your technology conference is a surprise appearance by Steve Ballmer. You know you've got some serious issues. Steve Ballmer was somehow the least of their problems. It was a disaster right from the start. Actors who were pulled directly from old commercials that aired in the 90s flooded the stage. We'll call them Tornado, Can You Dig It, and Stereotype Girl. Tornado is an extremely exaggerated carrot top caricature who would aggressively dance around the stage while screaming about women and how he killed the entire world. Stereotype Girl would just walk around, repeatedly assuring everyone how popular she was and how important it was to be a girl. Can You Dig It could only yell movie catchphrases. As this flood of sense-killing visuals paraded around the stage, they would intermittently yell out "Born Mobile" as shrill as possible. This all came to a close when the CEO of the company magically appeared on stage and revealed that, yes, he was born mobile too. This was only the beginning of the show. There was still an hour left for random actors, musicians, and even Big Bird to appear as Qualcomm effectively announced nothing. Number 7. WCW learns why live broadcasts are risky. During the 90s, there was a period known as Monday Night Wars, where WWE went head-to-head against WCW, airing their respective wrestling shows on the same night at the exact same time. The edge that the WCW had over the WWE was at the fact that their shows were broadcast live. While the WWE pre-recorded their shows, this allowed the WCW to begin their shows by revealing everything that happened on WWE's show before it even aired. This gave them a huge advantage over the struggling WWE. But the dangers of doing a live broadcast are always lurking around behind every scene, waiting to strike. When fate finally stepped in, it couldn't have happened in a worse way. In the lead up to a pay-per-view special, some of the WCW's biggest wrestlers were in the middle of a heated feud with a fan-favorite team of Sting, Davey Boy Smith, and Dustin Rhodes, revealing that they had a mystery partner that would shock the world when he faced Sid Vicious and his gang. That was when the Shockmaster entered the scene, or at least fell into it, wearing a stormtrooper helmet that he painted with glitter and a black vest. The Shockmaster burst through a wall to make his entrance, only his leg didn't make it through. He fell flat on his face immediately and his helmet came flying off, revealing his identity as none other than Fred Ottman, the wrestler who recently left the WWE. Ric Flair and Booker T could have been heard over the microphone laughing and using language that was certainly not suited for live television after the Shockmaster's fall, with Ric Flair exclaiming, "See, I told you, oh God." The Shockmaster was quickly removed from the roster. Yeah, I need to learn where you're going there, buddy. Number 6. Can't run away from awkwardness. Summer Games Done Quick is a gaming charity where people from all over get together to complete video games as quickly as they can while collecting donations for charity. While that might not sound like the most exciting thing in the world, it can be fun to watch people completely destroy video games, to the point where something that would take a normal person weeks to finish can be done in 30 minutes, blindfolded. They also raised over $1 million for charity during the 2015 event. As you can probably guess, though, some of the people who dedicate their time to speed-running games can come off as a bit awkward. There's nothing wrong with being a socially awkward person, but when there's tens of thousands of people with their eyes on you, it can be a lot of pressure not to do something embarrassing. That worst-case scenario played out during the SGDQ in 2014, when the person presenting during the speed run of Tomba 2 completely spilled their spaghetti, so to speak. From the very beginning, his jokes and anecdotes fell flat while a speedrunner tried to make polite conversation, though he could be seen actively looking into cameras as if he were pleading for someone to make it stop. After a short time, he stopped responding to the presenter altogether. As he tried to concentrate on the game, his jokes kept coming with no reprieve in sight until he finally leaned over and said, "I would really prefer if you'd be quiet." This is just after the 5:15 mark in the video. The rest of the game was playing in deafening silence, with only talking coming from the person off screen reading the comments that the people were sending in with donations, seen by just under 1 million people on YouTube. Then, this one moment charity people won't soon forget. Number 5. Press asked to stop recording at press event. In 2005, Nintendo changed the gaming world by introducing one of the first game consoles based entirely around motion controls, known as the Nintendo Wii. The console sold like hotcakes to the casual crowd, and the rest is history. When Nintendo first revealed the Wii, however, quite a few games advertised with motion controls had been exactly one-on-one representation of your actual movements. While this might have been intended at one point, it wasn't actually possible until 5 years later in 2010, when Nintendo revealed the Wii Motion Plus. One of the first games to use the Wii Motion Plus was Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. With Zelda being one of Nintendo's biggest and oldest franchise, people were expecting a lot from Nintendo's first live game play to reveal at E3. Well, what they got instead was a buggy mess, as everyone on stage failed to control the character on screen, including the creator of the Zelda series, stressing that the game worked fine behind closed doors, and on-stage presenters insisted that the game must have been failing because of all the wireless interface in the crowd, asking the press multiple times to turn off their wireless devices. As you might guess, the press crowd didn't turn off their phones or computers, and the game continued to break until they just gave up and moved on. Good for you, people. Number 4. Laser tag freerunners. When you hear high-end electronics, what's the first thing that pops into your head? You probably weren't thinking of parkour, but that's the right answer for this instance. In 2010, Ubisoft held its own conference at E3 to announce its new hardware and software releases coming in the next year. For reasons that are still unknown, they decided that the best person for the job of announcing their multi-million-dollar projects to the world was none other than comedian and actor Joel McHale. While Joel tried to do his best in what was already a very strange situation, he was suddenly assailed by a group of street ninjas who did random flips around the crowd, jumping off the stage and posing over and over again for a group of phantom paparazzi. Judging by Joel's reaction, it seemed that nobody told him that this was ever going to happen, and it came as just as much of a shock to the press reporting on the event. What could these freerunners possibly wanted? Was a cheesy villain from a 1980s movie about to burst and ransom the world? No, it was all to announce a new laser tag game, something you would see being sold at a gas station. The laser tag game quickly went out of the way of real laser tag, having only ever sold in 15 stores across the U.S. Number 3. Microsoft's multi-million-dollar ace-in-the-hole embarrassment. After Nintendo's motion control gaming console surprised everyone and became a smash hit for the Japanese company, everyone else in the tech industry was seemingly left in the dust with their more traditional game consoles. Not wanting to miss out, Microsoft began working on their own motion control system, known as the Kinect. The electronic giant went all out, rebranding their flagship console with the new look and attaching the expensive controller as the box-in feature. Spending $500 million in advertising, Microsoft clearly wanted their motion controller to catch on. Unfortunately, during the Kinect's first live reveal, something went hilariously wrong at just the right time. The man revealing the Kinect to the world was Kudo Tsunada, and he asked a simple question. Have you ever wondered what the bottom of an Xbox avatar looked like? For the one person who did wonder that, their question was finally about to be answered. Kudo lifted his foot. Instead of Kudo's avatar raising its foot like it's supposed to, it began wildly spinning as its arms and legs snapped through his body and flew into the air. Reminds me of Goat Simulator. While this happened, Kudo enthusiastically yelled out, "Well, damn, there it is." While the Kinect still exists, it has almost completely removed from any important position on any Microsoft console. Yeah, I can see why. Number 2. Oya Can't Afford Conference tries to host its own truck. During big electronics and technology shows, a lot of large companies fight for the best time slots and venues for their conferences. Too early or too late, and you can end up ruining all of your work because no one will be around to see what you've done. If you can't pony up the $1 million or so needed to host a big show, then you ain't getting a spot. When the crowd-funded company Oya strolled into town in 2013, there was never a chance of them getting their own show. Instead of just accepting that they'd never get their own slot, they decided to host their own conference out in the parking lot of the E3's venue. While you could say it was commendable effort on Oya's part as the little guy in the league, they were not something to compete with. It just didn't change the fact that what was happening was awkward and hilarious. Their setup could be picked up by cameras outside of the venue, technically making the live broadcast just like they wanted. But their big show was cut short when the company hosting E3 paid a semi-truck to park in front of them, blocking the cameras from seeing anything. That's what happens when you have your conference in the parking lot. Yeah, but hey, it worked. Number 1. Product fails during its own advertisement. EVO is a yearly tournament that pits some of the world's best fighting game players against each other in a variety of different titles. In 2015, one of the advertisers for the event was Razer, with their specialty-made Fight Stick. A Fight Stick is a game controller designed like that of controllers you'd find in an arcade game. They cost more than a regular game controller, but a majority of competitive fighting players swear by them. Just as Razer sent out an announcement urging people to watch the final fight live, with their fighting sticks being used by one of 2 top players in the world, something unthinkable occurred. The stick broke. The biggest moment of the tournament was ground to a halt as people scrambled to figure out what was supposed to happen next. An important thing in fighting tournaments is that flow with the fights. When someone starts to get into a rhythm, breaking their concentration can completely change the course of the fight, and Razor's stick, which had literally just advertised, completely ruined the flow of the entire tournament. This might not sound like a big deal, but consider this. The winner of the fight took home $33,000, while the person whose stick broke did end up winning the final fight. There was no way to tell what would have happened if the stick didn't ruin the match flow. The 2 competitors had a chance to go all out. That's all for today. I hope you liked it, and please subscribe for my channel for future episodes. Hope to see you in the future, and maybe you can comment below on what you might want to see next. Y'all have a good day now.